Good evening and welcome to A24 on the Rocks, your local podcast constabulary that will be reviewing every single A24 film in chronological order. We are on The Florida Project, released in 2017. But first, let me hand it over to my lovely co-hosts, and we'll start with Big K Dog Kevin.
Good evening, world. It's Kevin K. Konkonachek, and I'm here. I'm drinking whiskey. No surprise to anybody, but tonight it is a Four Roses single barrel, and I am mixing it with some sour mix for a little whiskey sour, because I discovered that with our friend from the Martini Shot, although this one's a little bit of a cheater since I'm not making my own sour mix, but I digress. I love whiskey. I love sour things. I like putting them together. So I'm here to talk about a movie. Yeah. And next we have the Kiskas. Hi, guys.
Hey, I'm Eric, and in spirit of this film, I'm drinking a Camo Busch Light. This is the first time I've had this in a while, and I just thought it was fitting. So next, we have Kelly.
Hi, this is Kelly, and for this episode of the podcast, I'm drinking Bud Light, so take that as you will.
Hell yeah.
Take it as you will.
And to continue with the trend of Florida Man, I am just doing meth this evening. So that will be what I'm doing. No, I am actually drinking Noble Oak Double Oak Rye, quite a delicious whiskey as well. A24 on the rocks. Moving into this film, so The Florida Project was released in 2017. It was directed by Sean Baker. The writer was also Sean Baker and Chris Burgoosh. If I butcher your name, I'm sorry, Burgoosh. It stars quite an
Sorry, Burgoosh.
Yeah, sorry, Burgoosh. It stars quite a, I would say, young and unique cast. A lot of first-timers. Really, the only star that most people would even remotely know about is Willem Dafoe, but it also stars...
Just Willem. Willem, sir.
Willem
We're going to be saying
Dafoe.
his name a lot tonight, so it's clear we got to get it out of the way.
Willem Dafoe, Brooklynn Prince, Bria Vinaite, and then a couple other, let's call them local stars, and we can kind of get into that. But before we do, has anyone seen this film before? We'll start with the Kiskas, since there are resident
I
A24
have not,
fans.
but Kelly?
I watched it. I think it was during COVID time. It was on Netflix for a hot minute, so I had picked it out back then. And it's a rare occasion where I watched a movie without Eric, because Eric's the larger movie consumer of the two of us, but I must have picked it on a random Saturday while he was working.
What about you, Kevin? You familiar with this
Nope,
film?
I'm only familiar with it in the sense that it makes a lot of folks' top 10 or top tier of the A24 library. So many people on Reddit, when talking about their favorite A24 films, will cite The Florida Project. So I definitely knew its name and knew of its existence, even as early as episode 1 of doing this podcast. So it definitely had I don't know what I'm trying to say, an impact already kind of placed on me before going into it.
I definitely knew of this film, too. Like, a lot of chatter, for sure. I just never saw it. So.
Yeah, I fall in the same category of I've never seen it. Definitely a lot of chatter. I love slice of life, but I don't like kids. So every time it popped up, I was just like, maybe it's good. But I will say we all watched it, and well, let's dive into it, folks. Big one, child actors. This whole film is basically centered around a child. I believe her name is Moonee. She's 6 years old. She gets into a bunch of mischief, goes on adventures with her ragtag playmates, and she also has a very rebellious mother that she starts to bond with over her time. Essentially, the Florida Project is the prototype name for Walt Disney World when they were developing it, and this is set in Florida, just outside of, in like the shadow of Walt Disney World, in some rundown motels where a bunch of people seem to be staying more than their standard 14-day policy. So This film is kind of from Moonee's perspective, and it kind of, again, follows all of these kids as they run around and get into a bunch of mischief. What did you guys think of, the child actors in general, the perspective and the overall dialogue between the two? Let's start with Kelly first.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the other day about how even in TV world, there's not many TV shows now that are from or starring like a ton of kid actors. Like it was in the 90s, that was such a popular thing. And then all the Disney starlets for a really long time. And I just feel like that trend has not been a trend anymore. And there's all kinds of reasons behind it. But besides that, I think it is also rare for movies nowadays to feature a mostly kid cast. I'm kind of with you, Cole. When kids are the focus of something, I'm usually not gonna think it's something worth watching or consuming. But when it's done right, like this movie was, I think it's very good. And it makes me think of books. Like, you can't tell like Lord of the Flies from an adult perspective. That's the whole thing. It has to be from the kid perspective. And there's lots of other examples of that as well. But this movie, if we watched it without being from the kid's perspective, it would be a lot more difficult of a watch. But I think you got to kind of see it with that lens. So not only is it a necessity to tell the story that this movie wants to tell us, but I think all the kid actors really made it, they really like embodied their roles. I think that they all were very believable, and if they weren't, it wouldn't be good or worth watching. So all kinds of props to them because they carried us through and they were extremely believable. So I guess all of that roundabout talking of mine that I'm saying is that I get why it has to be from a kid's perspective, and I think that they're the reason that this movie is such a success.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Being a person that is not the biggest fan of kids, the dialogue and the interactions were very real, and to the point where at several times while watching this film and just seeing the kids act in their screaming and incessantness made me just drive me up a wall, which is kind of perfect because it's exactly what kids that age do, especially put in those circumstances. So what about yourself, Kevin? What did you think about our child actors and actresses?
So I enjoyed the fact that this movie set us up right away from a standpoint that the first credited person in the rolling credits at the beginning is the casting agent, meaning that the person that they gave the most credit to, I suppose, was the person that was able to find this cast of children and put them on screen. So that's the first accomplishment, right, is getting a group of 6 to 8-year-olds to not just come onto a film set, but in theory, memorize an entire script, give up several months of their lives to deal with a bunch of adults telling them what to do, and at the end of the day, you can only really explain it to them as it's, hopefully they're having fun doing it. A 6-year-old probably doesn't care too much about what they see on the screen. They're having fun doing it, right? So that ability of our writer and director to be able to get a performance of this magnitude from a group of not just children, but children that have never acted before is absolutely something that is really worth noting right off the bat about this film. Because the focus really is the kids. The entire film is through the eye of a child, through the lens of youth. And if you don't have an ability to kind of control at least a semblance of what they're doing, then you don't really have much of a movie. So the screenplay had to have been incredibly crafted well enough for a child to be able to handle it. We can go on when we get to other parts of this film and discuss it, but overall I was just so impressed right off the bat that they were not just using child actors, but really just diving in and making them the entirety of the film and embracing them from scene one, which I was just really happy with. So,
yeah, I guess I didn't realize that the casting director was the very first person credited, but it definitely makes sense. And doing some research on the people that they had in this film, I mean Scotty or Scooty, Christopher Rivera, the kind of like one of the main childs or kids, was just a kid that lived at the motel that they went and filmed at, and they found him and they essentially asked him if he wanted to be a part of the film, and I think he did a pretty phenomenal job. But it's also one of those things where when you take a kid in the trying to make a slice of life film and you find a kid in the slice of life and you just basically tell him to be himself, I think that goes more with like a lot of the directing perhaps. But Eric, what did you think about maybe the overall set and the kind of the initial vibes and the world building that happened when we first get plugged into this world of the motels?
So yeah, this was shot at an actual hotel that you can visit called the Magic Castle Inn and Suites, which is Kissimmee, Florida, about 6 miles from Disney World. You know, this is a very Florida film. A lot of people, when they think of Florida, they think of Disney World, they think of Miami and the neon lights and the glitzy, glamorous parts of it. But most of Florida is like this, actually. You have those very glitzy, glamorous parts. But then if you step a mile outside, then there are a lot of poor folks in Florida, a lot of people that are really struggling. And yeah, I think that was definitely a point they were hitting home so far, that you have this amazing like vacation resort just like 6 miles from here in Disney World. That's like the helicopters that were coming in. Apparently those were sightseeing tours. And our director, Sean Baker, I don't think he was planning on those helicopters coming in while he was shooting. And they kept coming in. He was like, oh, wow, this is actually really fucked up. Like, they have these helicopters that people pay tons of money for to, fly over Disney World. And they're about 6 miles in this very, like, poor community. They did a great job of showing, like, what it's really like in a lot of these communities in Florida outside of the glitzy and glamorous areas.
Yeah, I was reading the same thing about the helicopter tours where they just didn't have the budget to not allow them to fly, so they just kept flying and they just rolled with it, and that seems to be kind of the theme with this film, and I think it adds to the film with the helicopters, and then the motel was in service and active, and a lot of people in the background of a lot of these shots are actually just people that just stayed or were at that motel during the time. And as we get further into the film, you start to Halley, who's Moonee's mom, she's taking her to go basically resell perfume and stuff, and it's similar to like Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson driving around and meeting strangers. They did the same thing with her where they just put her outside of other resorts of families trying to, at golf courses and stuff, and told them to try and sell some stuff, and we'll film it and see what happens. So, definitely unique.
I think that thing with like the helicopters too, specifically, not only is it obviously like just showing the disparity of wealth inequality in that area, but it makes it almost feel like they're like living in a war zone, and like they've been like moved from their homes forcibly and they're living in like a war zone. And I don't think that that's an accident, that it kind of gives that impression as well.
Yeah, one of my first notes on here is in this circumstance, Florida is predicted or shown as basically a third world country. That was like my first impression with the way that they started out and made the impact of this film. It was very clear that you had to have that opinion of the setting of the film right off of the very bat, which they did a phenomenal job of establishing that. If there's my very first note on this entire film is that exactly what Kelly just said. It felt like a war-torn country. Like, that's impressive. And that's right in our own backyard, which was just intense. I did want to comment on the helicopter scene, too. I wrote about the kids flipping off the helicopter and how, you obviously get that trained. And I watched an interview with Brooklynn on the Jimmy Kimmel Show, and he was talking to her about the swear words and how you train yourself to do those things. And she's just like, yeah, my mom just told me it's your middle finger and you stick that one up. And then she gets the whole crowd to like tell her to do it, and she gives the middle finger to the whole crowd and they all lose it. And it was just kind of like, oh, this kid. So my point, I guess, with that story is that when we'll get to acting, that Brooklynn did a really great job on top of everything else. But like she, I think, is somebody we're going to see in Hollywood a lot. I think that you're like, even our writer-director compared her to Jodie Foster and Mickey Rooney as far as like child actors that eventually just continued to be their tour de force all the way through their adult lives. So I think it's somebody to keep an eye on. But I segued. Anyway, that's my point.
It's a good point. I appreciate it. As we get further into the film and we start meeting kind of more characters and understanding the dynamic of the motel and Haley as the mother to Moonee, we get introduced to Bobby, who's played by Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe.
Mixing that up
Willow.
with Kaiser Wilhelm from The Exception.
Yes, okay.
Kaiser Wilhelm, yes.
Yeah. So we're introduced to him. He is the manager of the motel. He's kind of running it, and he's, again, the only semi, like, quote unquote famous person in this whole film in terms of the actors and actresses throughout it. Eric, let's go back to you. What do you think about his performance and his general what he brings to the table in this film and aspects?
He's fantastic. I always love Willem Dafoe, and I see. Okay, I actually have like an idea in my head of what these kind of like managers are like, because I'm a mail carrier, and I used to deliver to like a motel suite called the Knights Inn, and there was definitely like a manager around there that kind of reminded me of Willem. Probably, not getting paid much, like he's manager by title, but he's just there to do all the dirty work basically, and having to deal with all of these people that are, transient, that are coming in and out of there because they're, technically homeless. Like, he did, like, play it like himself. Like, he had the Willem Dafoe accent. He did have, like, a lot of the eccentricities that Willem Dafoe usually has in a lot of his roles. He was definitely believable. He, like, definitely took on this character and ran with it. And from my personal experience, I think he played the part of, like, a manager at one of these kind of, I'll say it, slummy motels. He did a great job.
He is representative of, and I know that we all know these people in our lives where their job is their entire, like, that's their defining characteristic, and that's what they do, and they go above and beyond and everything, and it's not for pay, but it's like for personal pride in what you're doing. And I like that we have like a hint that something else is going on with him that we don't really know about, and maybe he's trying to overcompensate for what's lacking in his personal life or affronts that he's caused by being especially sympathetic to all of the people that, and he's like taking responsibility for these people in his motel too. And I think we all kind of know some of those people in our lives too, and a lot of the time it's people that enter that age group that he is, where he shouldn't be working anymore, but what else is he gonna do? That's like what he wants to do. And I think that there's some commentary on that. I'll also say from my first watch of this movie, the scene that I remembered the most is him getting that, for lack of a better term, I mean, it is what is suggested about him. It's him getting the pedophile off of the property. That scene is what stuck with me the most on my first watch. And I was surprised on my second watch. I was like, when is that part coming? Like, because it stuck with me so much, and he just rolls with it so well. It's so convincing.
Yeah, I think it's like people like this, managers at these motels, they have to also be a social worker. They like can't. They're not just a maintenance person. Because they work in these communities that are so underserved and in such like poverty. They also have to. There has to be like someone else there to be able to deal with a lot of the problems of the day in and day out of what it's like at some of these motels and the lives of the people there. And so he is just kind of like a untitled social worker throughout this whole film too.
Willem Dafoe. I think I have a special soft spot for Willem Dafoe, mostly because he's from Wisconsin. So I think that the Midwest nice in his upbringing, I think, comes through even particularly heavier for me in this film, probably just because he reminds me, like Kelly said, a lot of people in my life that just work and are just that friendly, go-getter type of guy who's just going to be there for you in every single circumstance. And the fact that they were able to put that type of character building into such an A-list actor is so cool. Meaning that Willem Dafoe approached Sean Baker about this role after reading the screenplay. And of course Sean Baker's like, yeah, of course you can be in my film. Like, I'm honored. It's wonderful. And he showed up on set a week early just to try to kind of get acclimated. Willem Dafoe talked about his biggest concern is he wanted to not be defined as an actor or as an outsider. He really wanted to assimilate with the society, with the town, with the people, with the people that he was going to be working with, especially the actors, because he knew going into it that he was going to be working with a bunch of unknown people that have never worked before. I mean, that's got to be an insane amount of pressure on a Hollywood A-list actor, knowing that you are essentially the only one with any real experience and that everybody's going to be looking for you for everything. And you just want to do it because it is what excites you. It's what he wants to do. It's the type of role that he's looking for. And that says a lot about him as a person, but also this project and the screenplay and everything that was put forward. He put his investment in it, and it shows so wonderfully on the screen. There are so many touching, caring moments that this film is defined by because of Willem Dafoe and his presence in this film. You have to have an adult to counteract the kid's side of things, and he truly does play this dad character so well. I love the freaking scene where he turns the power back on, and as he's walking away, some lady just screams, "I love you, Bobby!" And he just turns around and simply says, "I love you too." And that's the scene. And it's just so genuine. So genuine. It just gives me chills because it was just truly like, all he did was turn the power back on. But these people's lives are just so dependent on the littlest of things that something as simple as that they were able just to capture perfectly on screen. And I can rant and rave. I just really enjoyed this movie. But Willem Dafoe is a really big reason why. So just props to him for sure.
Yeah, no, he his portrayal and their general, like, the writing of his character is pretty spot on for what I would imagine a manager of one of these motels. And like Kelly pointed out, he's a social worker, he's a maintenance worker, he's the security, he's doing the books, he's fixing the power, he's kicking people out, he's also helping people, around certain loopholes to keep them, having a house and a home. He's having to go tell a lady to put her top back on at the pool while the kids are yelling at him.
And while dealing with what clearly is a messy divorce at home. I mean, Kelly kind of alluded it too, right? There's that secret thing that we don't really know. His son comes on Saturdays to spend time with him, but he doesn't really need the money, but he just wants to be there with his dad. But he can only do it so much because his dad is, workaholic. All this, like, the little details in this character building was just so well done. And I just really enjoyed it.
And you, like, when you find out that he just lives at the motel as well, so he's never really off. And yeah, just very, very well done. And I think him being, like, taking that role was just perfect. Absolutely loved it. Now on the other side of the spectrum, we had Dafoe come in, and he A-list star, does an amazing job. And then we have the mother of Moonee, Halley, who was she was found by the director because he liked her photo on Instagram and gave her a shot to come in. And they originally were planning on having either Britney Spears or Miley Cyrus or one of those people actually be Moonee's mom, but they decided against it because they didn't think people would believe a multi-million-dollar, millionaire pop star could be
good choice.
Halley.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been believable.
No, I nothing to maybe discredit any of those people, but for sure I feel like the use of Halley of again similar to what was that other film, A24 film we watched earlier this year with the magazine sales
American
Honey.
Yeah,
similar.
I agree.
Where it's
Very similar feeling.
There's similarities that, because like you were saying, it's like a slice of life film, but like this was, about an hour shorter at least. So, yeah, no, but there was a lot of just kind of the camera just hanging out there, just kind of being a voyeur, viewing people as they are. And I mean, there are big, like, I wouldn't say big plot. There's big plot turns in this film, but it's very much like, you're just kind of like living at this motel for the entirety of this movie.
Cole, when I discovered that she was cast via Instagram, I was like, wait, what? And then you think about it, like, yeah, you're just looking for a look. And then once you get a look, then you kind of start just interacting with that person. And I saw an interview, and she basically was like, yeah, I honestly thought I was getting catfished or fucked with the entire time until it turned out that he was real. She's like, because in what world is like a social media,
Yeah.
someone approaches you about being the star of a movie? Like, of course it sounds like a fraud. And then turns out that Sean Baker was legit and was just looking for, street casting essentially. And I was just like, God damn, that's why this movie feels as real as it really does, is because he found a freaking real life person and put her in a position to tell a story about real life people. Just brilliant. Fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it reminded me also of Krisha, where you have basically the one actress person, and the rest is just family members or people that they've brought in and have never done it before, but they're understand the circumstance. So very, very phenomenal job, which again goes back to that credit thing that you talked about with the casting and the director. But Haley's character as the mom, how do you think she portrayed that, or how that character is portrayed? Let's pass it over to Kelly, see what she's got to say.
Do you guys recall when we were reviewing Good Time, and a big theme I kept touching on was like offering an imperfect kind of love, and that's what Connie gives to his brother. Maybe he doesn't have the capacity to give love in any other kind of way. I think that's what Haley offers her daughter. And I think they do such a good job of showing how much she clearly adores her daughter, and also showing how she's not a good mom. And that's just like a hard fact. And she knows it, and everyone else knows it, but what are you going to do? And at the same time, she loves the heck out of her daughter, and both of these things can happen at the same time. So that's a very real thing. And usually I think movies want to give you like a warm hug about motherhood and daughterhood and family. And this one just kind of gives you a warm shrug, I think, of just this stuff happens. And I think as the audience, just like kind of in real life and as the characters in this movie, you're just kind of withered away to like a bystander effect, where no one's going to step in and really do anything to help the situation. And a lot of the time, people aren't in a position to be able to help the situation. And the way that the movie's shot, the way that they interact with each other, the way that Moonee's just allowed to run around wildly all day long and has horrible manners and talks bad and does crimes, but it's fine because she's a kid for now. All of that is just... It's just shown in so much detail, and it makes the whole movie work. But they do a good job of just showing that kind of relationship. I don't think it's something you often see in a movie, and I think that they handled it respectfully. I think that they handled it by fleshing it out enough and not just making it like a stereotype or a meme or anything like that. They make her complicated, and they make me as the audience both love and hate her at the same time.
What about you, Eric? What's your thoughts on Haley?
So I didn't catch this, I guess, the first time I watched this film, but she was actually like an exotic dancer, and she lost her job. That's where we meet her at the start, but that also makes it so she can't get her food stamps anymore. Then she, she goes to perfume sales, and then eventually she goes to full-on sex work. And I guess she quit her job because she didn't want to do sexual acts for the clients. And this whole backstory, it definitely reminds me of what I was saying with Good Time, where around this time they were making a lot of films trying to portray the lower class people of the United States, and really putting a microscope on it. And Haley definitely embodies so many people I think I've probably passed at a 7-Eleven driving around. And I don't know how this actress is in real life, but she totally sold the role to be of one of those people I'd pass at 7-Eleven that you're like, what's going on here? Why is this person smoking a blunt right outside the convenience store right now?
DJ bot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And she looks the part, she plays the part, she talks the part, she fully embodies this role. And yeah, she did a great job. And the question about her motherhood, yeah, she is not a good mother. I don't know what her other family life is like. I'm sure she didn't have she wasn't raised well either. And this film follows a woman who is in dire need though of money to stop her kid and her from being homeless. And yes, she makes some poor decisions, but it's in extremely
Desperate.
vulnerable, desperate. Yeah, it's because she's extremely desperate and trying to stop her and her kid from being, completely homeless, not having a roof over their head. So it's like at the same time I see her being a bad mother, and then the other side I see the reasons why she's acting like this. And it breaks your heart that there's so many people like this in our country.
I have someone in my life pretty close to me, and I'll spare the details as far as privacy is concerned, that's very similar to Halley in a lot of ways, even down to her situation, being a single mom, in a lot of the ways that she acts and the mannerisms and things, and it's been someone who's been in my life for a very long time. So when I was watching this film that hit super hard and home, and to a personal level that I don't often see in film, definitely not something that I would think about from a perspective of having a review, but her ability to capture kind of what Eric already alluded to, but the real life side of what we see so much in a lot of these lower income and the impoverished society parts of this country, it's relatable. It's something that we can see and something that we can say that we've experienced maybe in some circumstances or know somebody in our lives who has. But she did such a great job of kind of making it personal and real. And we've already touched on the whole slice of life, but this took its slice of life almost to an uncomfortable extreme where it really felt so real that you somehow managed to put it on, actual film and turn it into something so beautiful is kind of just a mind-blowing thing for me. But it really starts and stops with her ability. Bria Vinaite, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correct, but her ability to kind of not just be a mom, but also kind of be almost like a sibling to our character, to Moonee. I mean, when you have a child that young, you inevitably become friends with that child more than you are maybe a maternal influence. Mostly because you probably are a single person who's only with that child 24/7. And when you're that young, you're still growing up yourself. So you're still developing and you're impressing yourself on them and them on you. And we see that through this film. And they did a really good job from a chemistry standpoint of putting those two together and kind of allowing them to feel each other out on film and just create something beautiful. So just a great acting job in general. And I just enjoyed Halley's character and how it kind of just continued to drive things forward, even though she was a poor mom and made poor decisions. But the last thing I'll say on her is the final scene where she is walking up before CPS comes and all of that jazz. Just like her facial expressions and the body language in that scene was just so good from a pure physical acting job. You could never tell that she had never done that before. She just really embraced and embodied someone who had been doing it for years. So just kudos to her.
And I also wanted to throw in on the other part of her parenting. Like a lot of times she's just in her room smoking weed and not doing anything at all. And that her child is just running around getting up to mischief. There's definitely mental illness involved with her too. I think Kelly, you once told me there's not really any such thing as laziness. There's depression, there's anxiety, there's so many mental illnesses out there that cause people to just be shut-ins in their hotel room or in their room, and it stops them from going out to maybe look for a job, stops them from going to do several things, and in this case also stops Halley from being a real mom to her kid. And I think that we see the reflection of that with Moonee. And because she doesn't have an iPad or a PS5 or Xbox, she can't stay in and do what a lot of kids do these days and just play video games or play on their iPad. She's making up her own world in her head, just kind of like how we had to when we were kids, pre-iPad. I mean, I guess I was playing N64, but she. It reminds me of in the 50s, this actually used to be kind of how it was. You tell your kids to go run around and do whatever and just be back by 6 o'clock for dinner. But nowadays, there's so much going on in the world that you can't really do that anymore. And I just think that all of the things going on with Halley are reflected in her too. and it's a really cool character study.
And like as I think this film does a great job with this slice of life where something so small and insignificant. So obviously, Haley and Moonee are not in the best situation, but they have a kind of a sense of community in the motel. And Moonee, Scooty, and one of the other children, I can't remember their name in the film. Scooty gets a hold of a lighter, and they go off and they go on an adventure, and he shows them a lighter, and they're all like, "Oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever!" And they end up basically burning down this whole abandoned condo complex.
The abandoned.
Yeah, and one of the other parents, who is kind of like Haley's best friend, she gives them food every day because she's working at basically like a Waffle House, and they're essentially best friends. She finds out and wants nothing to do with Haley anymore. So this like act of these kids getting into mischief results in Haley kind of losing her community, and that kind of pushes her down this pathway into the what Kevin talked about with the sex work that she was from at the beginning of the film seemed to be against, and she lost the job because of it. At least that's the implications from what we're told throughout the film. But I mean, hell, when I was a kid, I remember I got a magnifying glass one time, and that was, one, the coolest thing ever, and two, I got into a lot of trouble because I started a fire in the backyard with that bad boy with a bunch of dried leaves. And, it's like, hell, if a kid finds a cool toy like that, and not saying a lighter is a toy, but a cool thing that they believe is a toy, it could almost kind of derail, these lower income households that have very little, and one mistake by a 6-year-old child just all of a sudden kind of destroys their whole community.
I mean, this whole movie was super real, but that whole sequence and scene was even more so. I was put myself in that scene, like, of course they're going to ask about that lighter. We just saw the lighter about 5 minutes earlier. Oh, there's the lighter. And like, it was just the way that whole thing, and like the realness of the other single mom, her friend, just being like, if you did this, like, we're fucked. Like, this is not good, like, at all. Like, the realness of that whole thing, and having to make the decision to cut off her 6-year-old son from his friends, based to like self-preservation. The movie just got more and more real as it went on. It was just so well put together from start to finish from that perspective. I think I remember like messaging Eric after I finished it, and I was like, this is like a slice of life to the maximum, to the extreme. And I mentioned earlier, to like an uncomfortable level. We've talked about slice of life before, but this movie somehow just doubled and embodied it even more than all the other ones. It was just something different and cool, and why A24 is brilliant, and why we're sitting here and reviewing all 150 or whatever the fucking movies it is, because they do things like this, and they get us to have conversations that are just well and above what you normally would expect after watching a film. So that's the reason we're doing this shit.
I want to talk more about that condo scene, and then what happens after it, being two of my most favorite scenes as well. They do such a good job in this movie of letting us know as soon as they step a foot on the premises of these condos that shit's gonna go down. Like, something bad happens here, and you just have to wait to see what it's gonna be. And once it happens, I think they do such a good job of pacing it and not showing the fire start. They show the kids running away, and Moonee saying, "We're not going to tell anyone anything, keep your mouth shut," and she just assumes that role, and I'm just like, this is who my girl is. And they show that scene of they go out, like the whole community goes to watch the condos burn down, and her mom's like, get in front of it, let's take a picture, smile, and that face that she makes is like prime. And I love that they included that scene. I'm happy that it was still in there. And meanwhile, Scooty does such a good job of being the extremely guilty kid that isn't going to talk about anything. And they, like, just those parts of that movie just sing to me, of just the way they shoot it, the way they pace it. It's just amazing. And then it leads not long after that into the other scene that I really, really like, which is Haley's revenge for her daughter getting cut off from her best friend is going to the diner and being the worst patrons in the world, just nightmare patrons. It's just this like weird sense of, it's a humor break. Like, yes, awful things are going on, but look at how you can find humor kind of in it, even when there's victims involved. I don't know. So I love that they included that. I love the way that she handled that kind of conflict, and then how that kind of continues and escalates, and et cetera, et cetera.
We just got done reviewing what was the crazy last hypertension film that we just got done watching.
Good Time?
Good Time. Kelly, in Good Time, you talked about how you kind of wished that there was a little bit of a break in Good Time. Like you had a moment to kind of like enjoy it or relax or just get away from the emotion for a second. And I really think that these comedy scenes in here definitely do that. They give you an opportunity, right, for me. And the only reason I thought about it until it was because we just finished that episode. I was like, oh, yeah, I wish there was a break for me to not have my heartbeat at 1,000 in that movie. But this one gives you time to digest the heavy material while giving you something lighthearted, and it allows you to kind of ingest that part too. And that's what life is. So just a cool 360 kind of run around moment on that.
For sure. And then one thing we haven't touched on, but I thought was I want to kind of get my more musically inclined people, not like myself, the soundtrack, the overall like soundtrack and the music choices and things of that nature. Eric, let's hand it over to you. Tell me about music.
I can't remember like much of the music in this film. It's very Was there an actual like score throughout it? I kind of remember a few music parts.
If Cole would have asked me, Eric, first, I would have said the same fucking thing. I'd be like, I don't remember a goddamn thing about the soundtrack. The rest of the movie was way too distracting.
It seemed like we had a lot of ambient noise, and maybe things were perked up in the background that I wasn't noticing. But yeah, I think they tried to, like, again, put you in the day in the life of one of these motels. And I think most of the music we get is from the people in the motels playing music.
Right,
so,
or like the car scene when the girls go out and they go on the strip and there's all the music playing there. And like, yeah, it's just whatever you would hear in your daily life. And that's probably why we didn't notice it, because it was so slice of life that it just made you feel like you were just enjoying life or watching somebody's real life. Like there was no intentionalized music put into it. And I fucking loved it.
Yeah, when I'm trying to think of what I heard through this movie, I hear car noise. I hear like the babbling of the water when they're sitting by the willow tree. I hear obviously the helicopters. It's just like I hear like asphalt, because asphalt has a sound. I hear like all of that. I feel like you can almost like hear the hot sun on like the pink building. Like I think that's what the soundtrack kind of seems to be to me. And also like background noise of people talking and stuff, like just real. I don't know.
Yeah, my pretty much my only notes for the soundtrack of this movie is like you only hear songs, at least from what I could tell, when there's actually songs playing in like the film, right? Like a lot of times you have music in the background that's kind of over the film that the characters don't necessarily hear in the film, but in this one,
I just remembered is every time we had the scene of our main character taking John's, we had the image of Moonee in the bathtub, and there was always loud music playing in those scenes because it was obviously drowning out the noise of what was happening in the bedroom. Now that I think about it, like that didn't make note, like why? Because it took me until like the second or third bathtub, honestly, for me to really put it together. Like, holy shit, that's what's happening, and the music now makes a lot more sense. Like it was truly like, but it was, again, just like we got talked about, it was in a real life scenario that was playing in real life. It wasn't intentionally like overlaid in the background. Like it was, you heard it through a door, for example. So that was just really cool too.
Yeah. I it took me a few of those scenes to truly understand what was happening. And I think, I mean, maybe if you're a little more in tune with it, you could have picked up on it, but I think they kind of played that hand very, very close knit to make you feel more like the child in the scene than the adult, right? Like you don't know exactly what's happening. You're just having a bath and your mom's listening to music and having a good time. As we get towards the kind of the end of this film, there is something that did bother me, and I want to know if anyone else picked up on it, which is kind of at the culmination where Child Protective Services comes, the manager's essentially having to kick Haley out because of the implication that, you know, that she's using his hotel or motel as a prostitution area where she's bringing in men to sleep with, and that's been one of the big rules that he has essentially is you're not allowed to do that. Moonee essentially runs away, and she ends up in Disney World, and that's kind of the climax. Did anyone else notice a certain change in how everything looked?
Of course, yeah. No, it was
They shot it on
they went to
iPhone.
digital. It switched to digital immediately.
Yeah, I like when I saw that, I was just like, I don't know what's happening, but I genuinely, it makes me angry for what's happening. And then
we have to
and then
discuss the final scene now because of your criticisms on the film switch.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, all right, fine.
That's a yes.
Fine, you started it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cole. Finish your thought.
Yeah. My thought is, I understand they did a guerrilla-style filming inside of Disney World, so they had to use iPhones, but I don't know. My God, I feel like 90% of the scenes that they shot with the iPhone were them going to Disney World. You could have still used a normal camera, man. I don't know. It kind of drove me crazy. I did not like the transition there, and it really pissed me off. But
Might not have been able to do a normal camera in there.
I have a reason. I have a reason.
But did they even need to do it?
No, the whole idea
That's
is
what I
that
think.
whether we have to question whether or not they actually did it, right? Isn't that the idea?
No.
All of a sudden, it turns into kind of a feeling of a dreamscape. All of a sudden, you and your best friend, who's 6 years old, are going to escape. You probably are not getting through Disney security.
They didn't actually
right?
do that, yeah.
So,
Well,
I just feel like that was an intentional choice. Also, Tangerine, the other film done by Sean Baker, was filmed on an iPhone, so it was kind of a callback, probably to his previous work in that perspective, especially because he couldn't get authorized to be in Disney World, and you know for a fact that they have to have some footage because this film literally is filmed in the shadow of the mouse for a reason. Like, it was just worked out really well.
The shadow of the
Shadow
mouse.
of the mouse. I fucking loved it.
That's a new podcast.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, there you go. Please call it that. I thought it was just a good callback. It just made it. I cried my eyes out at the end of this film. I really fucking did. Like the final scene was just
very emotional
poetic and
So,
yeah.
I guess we got to ask ourselves, why did they do this for the final scene? And the reason is because Moonee, throughout the whole film, lived in her imagination to avoid the real things that were going on with her mom and, right around her. And that was, like all the kids in the motel were all playing, they played games, they used their imaginations, because like I said, they didn't have iPads, they didn't have Xboxes, they didn't have PlayStations, they were making their own world. And so that was what the ending was, I think, is just this, the most horrible thing that could happen to Moonee happened. I mean, it might end up better for her, maybe not, because I don't think a lot of the time it does for these kids that get torn away from their parents. But I think that, our director wanted us to be like, well, this is like the ultimate happy ending in a world that usually doesn't have any happy endings for people like this. And it definitely, was a comment on, like, look at how, like, a person, like a child like this could live so close to Disney World, like the magical kingdom, and where everything has a picture perfect happy ending. Like I don't think I remember a horrible sad ending in any Disney film, and I think Disney is so tied into what this film is trying to accomplish too. And so I felt it was fitting, but at the same time cheap. Kind of wish that we just got a sad ending, and I kind of wish that we didn't go into the dream scenario here, and I wish and definitely it was jarring to go into iPhone 6s Plus camera, and it's going to date it a bit too, because we're in 2004 or 2024 now, and our iPhone cameras are so much better now too, and they're just going to keep getting better, so it dates the film a bit too, and so that's my only knock on the film, but I like everything else it was trying to accomplish.
I will agree, Eric, that it is very jarring. That is completely juxtaposed to the rest of the film, and all of a sudden it does come out of left field. Like, wait, you were giving me a gritty slice of life where you were unapologetic about the way you made me feel this entire film, and now you're trying to sugarcoat it at the end? I can see how for some folks that would be like, not what they were looking for. Obviously, for some other folks, it was exactly what they're looking for, and I think that's probably why this film is so good, is the subjectiveness of it, the way you're watching it and the way your expectations are either subverted or, succeeded, depended on the way you watch it, which I think is a mark of a great film.
One more thing. The cinematography was also so good this whole film. Shot in 35 millimeter film, and there's so many beautiful shots in here. Like, especially the shot of the abandons getting burnt down. That was, like, beautiful, too. And it was done by Alexis Sabe. She did a great job. So it makes the ending even more jarring
she was
and
not
crazy.
holding that iPhone, because that iPhone was going
yeah.
all over the fucking
And most of this
place.
film wasn't handycam like American Honey. It was slice of life, but not total handycam. And I really appreciate films that are shot so beautifully like this on such a low budget. But Kelly,
I wish they didn't have that ending. I really, really, really strongly hated it. And I think that the end of it is already like at a point where I was like, oh, emotional peak. And then this ending comes and I was like, what is this crap being funneled into my mouth? That's how I felt. And I hated it so much. And there's another A24 movie in our long future, because it's a little more recent, that does an ending in a similar way where I went, this changes my whole perspective of the rest of the movie because I hate the ending that strongly. So I won't tell you guys what that is. Audience, if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't.
You'll have to find out. Keep listening. Every single episode, you don't know where it's going to come.
You know, not that I set you up for that, Kelly, but I also have read a couple of reviews and people online who have a very similar opinion, where it's so polarized, where it was loved the film, hated the ending. Loved the whole film, loved the ending. And I think that we're going to probably put ourselves in that camp, and I'm totally okay for that, because I embrace that change and all of us having different opinions on this shit.
We have this beautiful scene with Moonee where it's like the close up and she's like starts crying and does like
and she hasn't cried the
whole movie. Never cries, like, but shows so much emotion for like a 6-year-old kid to do this on film. It's like super impactful, and it's a very high stress like situation that's all occurring, and then it just switches so fast into this iPhone thing that just pissed me off, to be honest. And
is it supposed to be from the perspective of like her future foster mom, like they came back and picked up her friend, and
it's supposed to be from the perspective of Moonee. That's what the director said, and what she would have imagined.
But hang on.
Right, because she spent every day living underneath the world of Disney, so she thought about running away with her friend every single day. She just never could do it because you're poor and you're destitute and there's no chance you could ever get there. So this was what if you were a normal kid? What if you didn't live in a hotel day to day? What if you had a family that could take you to Disney as a 6-year-old kid and live that dream that everybody wants? That's what I think this movie was trying to tell you.
Or what if your foster parents do it for you within a whole year of you being adopted?
Well, right.
If she ever gets a foster parent, which a lot of the time kids like this don't, right?
Yeah.
Right, so it could still be a dreamscape, but put her in a different outfit and maybe I can think that that's the ending, and that would explain the iPhone.
You would be nice. Child tax credits. All right, never mind. Let's not go into politics. Sorry.
Let's not.
I think I've expressed my hatred of kind of like the early 2000s to like mid 2000s, that transition of digital film where you get all these films starting to be, filmed in all digital formats. And now when we go back and look at them, they all look terrible because they were filmed with cameras from the time that could only do like 1080p or 720. And meanwhile, you have films that are filmed in actual film, like the 35 or 70 millimeter, that, the picture, each film, on those reels, they're way better quality than any of our digital platforms can actually produce right now. So they're able to take like films from way back in the day, like Space Odyssey, 2001: A Space Odyssey. They remastered that in 4K because they're able to. Like if this film ever gets remastered, they're like, it's gonna be amazing. You're gonna have 35 millimeter. We're gonna blow this out. It'll be 8K, and then like the last like 5 minutes will be the most great
240p
granular piece of shit I've ever seen. And so I just think about that in the long term, where it's just like, as this gets older, it's only going to be more and more jarring and more terrible. Mm-hmm. Like maybe at the time, which wasn't that long ago, it still was jarring, but maybe not as much. But man, I don't know. It just drove me crazy. That was my little nitpick of the day. But I suppose, does anyone have any closing thoughts before we get into our kind of our ratings and our final discussion of this bad boy? Anything they want to bring out?
we wanted to compare it to two other A24 movies we've already watched in chronological order. One we already brought up, which was American Honey. This is like American Honey in one place and with younger people.
And better.
That was my... And better. And shorter.
Yes, well, that's the key. It's the better is the shorter.
Pinker!
Pinker.
So that was very much present, not only because of the whole poverty aspect, but also just like the hot heat southern kind of lifestyle aspect of it as well. And then I also was thinking, and this might just, like Eric kind of alluded to, it seems A24 was just in this wheelhouse of showing the underside of American culture. Like that's very much where
all film kind of was. A lot of indie films were.
Yeah, a lot of indie films. This seems to be like, is this an appropriate time to say like the zeitgeist of the time is like, this is what's
it was real hot,
being told.
So hot right now.
I think that this movie is like the sunlight to moonlight. I think that they kind of live together like sibling movies.
I like it.
And kind of, yeah, so that's my other thought.
Sunlight.
My other thought is I watched a cool interview with Sean Baker, and someone asked him about the inspiration for this film. And he talked about how growing up he was really influenced and enjoyed The Little Rascals, old school television show from the 20s and 30s or later, and then of course the modern revelation of it. And so much to the point where the idea of the child kind of not necessarily running the theme, but being the central part is clearly what the Florida Project is about. It's through the film, is through the gaze of a child. And I really just enjoyed that comparison, like thinking about the Little Rascals as a kid. Like those kids had total massive personalities on their own. They got into all sorts of fun shenanigans and hijinks, but the story was still about them. It was still about, their personal characters and the names of, Alfalfa and Pigpen and some of the other, that's not even right, that's Peanuts. But the point being is that Little Rascals had a bunch of influence, and I kind of see that even in a real life comparison with some of the kids that we see in this film, and I thought that was a cool little tidbit.
And I'll also say the owners of these places are always the absolute worst. Like I said, I used to deliver to some places like this, motel and like a rent-controlled housing place, and they are always the biggest cheapskates. Like that scene where Bobby, he has to remove a bed with bed bugs and a room infested by bed bugs, and his son is just like, why don't you just get an exterminator? It probably wouldn't cost much more than a few new beds and repainting everything. And then he just kind of stared at him, and he was like, anyway, like, and it's like you could tell like the owners like are too fucking cheap to do that, and they feast on these people that have nowhere else to go. And I mean, it's actually not much cheaper than just renting a place, but sadly a lot of these places the people that go to these places, they have horrible credit, and to rent a apartment, usually you have to have somewhat okay credit for your landlord to take you on. So that's where all these people end up.
Another thing I want to touch on that we didn't really get to too much is the script and the actual way that they kind of had improv versus delivered lines. I think it was really obvious that a lot of what the kids had to say was, of course, given to them from a dialogue standpoint, but there's definitely some freedom for improv, which is backed up in later interviews post-production, that Sean Baker basically said, if you feel like you can add something, go ahead and do it. Add some little flair, add a little piece. And of course, Willem Dafoe, being as professional as he is, has a lot of great moments where he kind of is the reason that the improv goes a certain way, or has kind of a development. And Cole, I hate to steal your thunder here, but if you're going to talk about the Sandhill Cranes, there's a scene where we get the birds awesome. Coming across, and apparently during filming, those birds came every single morning, and those birds are notoriously pattern-based in Florida. Like, all the locals will say they'll do the same things over and over. They're very smart, but they're also extremely protected, so you can't do anything about it. So that's just Willem Dafoe truly just trying to shoo these birds out of the scene, and they just captured this perfect moment, and then it made it into the film. And those little things are just truly kind of what makes it great. Another cool quit scene is when the kids are eating ice cream in the hotel lobby, And Willem Dafoe is like watching them intently, and you can see them taking a lick, and then the one hits the ground, and he's like, I told you, if one drop hits the floor, you're out of here. And they're starting to argue, and as they're leaving, Willem's like, thank you very much. And the little girl's like, you're not welcome. And that was all completely improvised, and I was just like, that's great. Just a little 6-year-old just giving a little shit to the adult, telling her to leave with her ice cream into the Florida sun. It was just really well done. So kudos to them.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up kind of what you just talked about, Kevin, but bring up the question, is this movie successful just by happenstance, or is it the writing? Because so much of this film, like after reading about it, so much of this is improv. So all the a lot of the kids are like dialogues improv. You talked about the Little Rascals. The scene when they're eating the jelly is straight from the Little Rascals. Like the dialogue is copy and pasted from it. The Sandhill crane scene, 100% improv. The helicopters is improv. Even the rainbow, the scene where they filmed the rainbow over it, they were thought about doing it post-production, but then the rainbow came out anyhow, and they got that. So I guess my question to you guys before we wrap up, is the writing actually good, or is God just willing this movie to be good by giving them all the tools under the sun? Or maybe that's just the director is such a good director. He took the slice of life and he was like, this is just life. We don't need a script. Throw it out the window. We got life right here, baby. Give it to me. Anyone got opinions on that?
I think God, everything under the sun, would be a rainbow, and if that came from God himself, then the rest of this was willed upon by him.
Perfect.
I mean, I think if you stick around,
combo of both.
Yeah, if you stick around some of these places long enough, you will get some of these shots and these scenes. Like I don't think it's that out of the ordinary that these kind of things would happen. Like,
and you're not going to give 6-year-olds to give
yeah.
you that performance if you're not giving them the direction. And it was, I saw other interviews that they literally had to bring acting coaches in for these kids. And they treated it like a summer camp.
Or the writing, Are we saying
I think it's the director for sure. I think that Sean Baker truly has something awesome.
Well, he's also the writer, so.
Well, okay, fine.
One of the writers.
Yeah, my point is...
Trick question!
I don't even know. It was just really well done all the way across the board from everybody involved. That's pretty much what I gotta say.
Yeah. No, I still think they did a phenomenal job with the writing and directing. I just wanted to maybe pry out some controversial hot topics from you guys by saying that it wasn't, but I didn't get it, so fuck it. Nope. Let's go into our review.
Sorry.
You know what, Kevin? You've been talking a lot. Why don't you start us off?
That makes me feel guilty. Like I'm talking too much.
No, right. I love your voice.
I'm going to start off this review with my favorite quote from this entire film, and it comes from the scenes where Moonee and her new best friend are alone and wandering around, and they go underneath the giant willow tree. And the line is, do you know why this is my favorite tree? Because it tipped over, and it's still growing. And I think that alone, that sentiment, is the entire driving force of this entire film. When life gets you down, when things don't go right, sometimes it's how you approach it, sometimes it's how you look at it, sometimes it's how you soldier through some of those moments. Fully knowing, though, at the end of the day, that it may not go your way. That in a worst-case scenario, you may lose your child. You may lose your life. You may lose your, well-being. But also, there are just small things to be taken away from the happy moments. And this movie really just makes you think about real life from start to finish. And that's the intent. It's why this is an A24, why it's an indie film, why it's something that's unique and different from the rest of cinema in general. Because it really just makes you think. And if you don't watch this film and walk away with any sort of emotion, I'm not saying that you're a soulless monster, but I'm saying that you probably should watch it again, because there's just something special about the way that they are able to add something that is so real, something that happens every single day. And not just in Florida. I mean, we're talking about just the whole country across the board. And the disparity from the haves and the have-nots and everything that goes into it. This movie makes it so personal because it looks at it from the eyes of a 6-year-old, from the eyes of a child, of someone who doesn't see money. I could go on and on, but this movie just really, in its small amount of time, just asks a lot of important questions and doesn't answer them for you. You have to think about it yourself. You have to watch it and be like, how do I feel about if I knew someone in my life who was forced into prostitution because she couldn't afford to keep food on the table. And then when the government shows up to take her kid, they ask her to help out. Like, what? In what world is that? But it's real. And then you have people like Bobby, the character played by Willem Dafoe, and they have to come through and be this guiding force, even though they're getting paid sub-minimum wage probably to do a job that's what Eric said, like an only in title only. This movie really just gives you a perspective, especially if you have any sort of experience with the subject matter, an opportunity to really kind of embrace it. We didn't really talk a lot of time about cinematography and all the other semantics about the movie making because this one kind of just stands apart as something unique and different. I hope I'm not trying to give this movie more laurels than it deserves, but I really just enjoyed this process. I love talking about it, and I think it was just a really important film, and I'm really glad that I got a chance to watch it and be part of this process. So for me, the acting, the directing, the writing, everything under the sun, the uniqueness, everything about this just definitely screams A24. Therefore, it gets an A24 from me. So there you go.
Very well said. Let's go to Eric next.
Well, I think I've pointed out my one gripe with this film, which is the ending, and the reasons why I feel like it's already dated, and I just felt it was a bit cheap after this kind of emotional punch to the gut that we get from right before. I kind of wish that they just ended up just with a sad ending, because I think that would have been true to the film. But at the same time, I loved the cinematography in this film. I think the acting was phenomenal, and it's amazing directing to be able to direct this group of kids, get these kind of performances out of them, and be able to wield this very powerful story with a lot of improvisation throughout the whole thing. The cinematography, one of the best I've seen in A24 films until the ending. But besides that, there's a specific scene when Haley beat the shit out of her friend, and then that whole time it was Haley in the background just throwing punches, but the camera was right behind Scooty's head, and you could just see Scooty's head in the foreground, Haley just throwing punches in the background. Also, a really good shot was when Haley stuck her maxi pad on the window. Great shot. And so I just had to mention those two scenes. Sorry.
Just shot that one out.
Classic.
I did like that scene.
Classic.
It was funny. But yeah, this film is so great up until the last 5 minutes, and so I'm not gonna take that down too much, but sadly it just won't get in the A category for me, so it'll get a B+, which I think is the same rating I gave Swiss Army Man. So it's like good but imperfect.
All right, I will go next, and I like this film. I have expressed that I love slice of life. I'm a big slice of life guy, so this was definitely right up my alley. It's also not too long, good runtime in my opinion. Maybe trim off the last 5 minutes, like Eric said. I don't like kids, so the fact that it made me like this movie, even with all of the incessant screaming and yelling and just antics that those child get into, that just drives me crazy. But so well done, so beautiful, so well shot. And I was in Florida this year for a wedding, and some of the places the gift shops and stuff, I remember driving by those, and I was watching the film and I was doing the Leonardo DiCaprio I this was actually there. So and then after looking it up, I mean they basically just went all in and just moved in essentially to that motel and filmed everything as it actually was, in a sense. And I think that was awesome. And the story that they tell is one that is, just so sad and traumatic, but also one that is so prevalent in society, especially in places like that. So I thought it was a very well done, shed some light on some things that maybe the higher, more affluent people either just don't realize or choose to ignore. And I thought it's nice to see films that kind of bring a light onto some of those some of those areas in society. I am also of the opinion that the last 5 minutes kind of really tainted the film for me. I don't like that transition. It's very abrupt. It goes from being this beautiful, 35 millimeter, like Eric was saying, film to a dude running around with an iPhone 6 trying to shoot little kids in a parking lot and at Disney World. Like, it just doesn't have the same impact or feeling that I think he wanted, right? Like, I think if given the full reins, he may have been able to do something better. But at the same token, if we're sticking with this slice of life, it just seems kind of out of place, almost like he wasn't going to put it in, but they made this film and the producers were like, we can't have this as the ending. We can't just have it be so sad and so kind of just hopeless. We have to, people want something to cheer for. So the director went out and was like, fuck it, we're going to shoot them at Disneyland and they'll be happy, and then that'll be the ending if that's what they want. So it just seems, I don't know, thrown in that I didn't like it. But overall, I think this is a fantastic film. I definitely think everyone should watch it. It definitely falls into that category that I'll recommend it to anyone that has any interest or inclining of an A24 film. It scratches a lot of those itches that I love. But because of that ending and stuff, I'm like, Eric doesn't quite get that A treatment, sadly. I really wanted it to, but I just can't in good conscience do that. So I'm going to give it a B plus 24. And I'll pass it over to Kelly to round us out.
In the shadow of the mouse, I shall give my review.
The sunlight to the moonlight, shadow of the mouse.
And it is also open source. Hey,
Steamboat Kelly, start
into your...
Start putting Mickey Mouses all around me and put it on YouTube.
Our social media game is about to change.
Public domain, let's go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that said, a piece of cinematography that I wanted to bring out was the sweeping landscapes when these kids are, like, traveling from, like, pinpoint to pinpoint to pinpoint on their adventures, and it's from the perspective of the road, like as if you are in the car, and this is the kind of stuff that you would just see between tourist traps and between all these other things. And it just kind of hammers home that this world that these kids embody is not made for pedestrians, and it's not really made for children to play in. This world that they're in is not for you to be poor, and it's not for you to be able to walk around. You're expected to be a person who's traveling there to spend money and drive a car. And I think a lot of places in America are like that, and I don't think it's an accident that that kind of cinematography boils that home to me. We've kind of touched on everything else that I kind of had to say as far as movie beats go. And as far as acting, I think we've all said that it was very authentic. I do think that there's pieces of the acting that for me was a bit overdone and took me out of it. And that's just something that I just kind of wanted to throw out there as well, where just overacting bits in pieces. I think at the end of the day, this movie feels like almost like it wants to be kind of like documentary style, like you're a fly on the wall in this motel. That leads me to kind of ask, like, well, like, what's the purpose of making this movie then? Because if it's documentary style, then I think that there's a point behind it. And is the point just to show the human struggle? Is it to show a prevalent problem that a lot of society wants to overlook? And if so, is just showing it in a movie and exposing it enough? Like, why or why not? So it just kind of opens all these questions for me. And at what point does that become almost like, and I'm not suggesting that this movie's doing that, but other movies, if they were to follow in the same kind of footsteps, does it become exploitative? Does it kind of become irresponsible? These kind of questions kind of raise in my head as well. Like, is it enough just to show it without something else being said? And why should it be created at the end? Because it's not just trauma porn, and it's just kind of showing that humans are humans. Well, I know that, but I think that I'm also having my personal thoughts and perspectives being thrust upon my review, which I can't remove that aspect of me. And there comes a certain point where we've been watching a lot of movies like this lately. And at some point, like, there's a certain level of like compassion fatigue that becomes prevalent for me, where if I saw this movie in a vacuum, I think that it would have hit me a lot harder. And maybe even the first time that I saw it, I think it hit me harder. But this time, because we've been watching so many movies that just like are sucking emotion out of me, so good job, A24. I think that's the goal. That there's less of that for me to give to this movie. And because of that, I feel like I'm probably going to rate it a little harsher than if it didn't exist in a vacuum. With these kind of questions arising in my mind, and in addition to that, it's not like the ending is like movie ruining for me. And I think that it's supposed to be a bittersweet ending. I don't think it's supposed to be happy. I think it's pretty clear that it doesn't happen for her. But without it, you have that same kind of ending. I don't know. It's not a huge beat for me, but because of all of these things and because of my personal perspective on it too, that's what's going to keep it out of the A class for me. And I still think it's a very good movie, but it's still going to get a rating from me as a B24.
So, okay, I do want to talk about a few things you said there. Like we were saying at that time, there was a lot more class consciousness in the general American public after 2016. And I think, like I was saying, it was being reflected in pop culture. And are we a little tired of those stories all the time now without something more or new being said about it? Like, is it not enough just to point a camera at it? Like, since we have gotten so many of these stories, I think between 2016 and 2020, do we need, it's maybe gotten boring territory and we need to have
Is reviewing
more
this in
said about
2024 different for a film that came out 5 years or not 7 years ago now? You're probably right. I bet you the discussion is a little bit different in 2017, right after this film comes out, as opposed to being now. So I think there's something to be said about that for sure.
Because at that time, I think a lot of people were like, because this film was really well rated, I think people were just like, well, it was so brave and like amazing to point a camera at what real life is like, in these motels. But now I think we've seen several of these films and we're like, this is a little bit worn territory. But then at the time, this was actually newer territory.
And it was newer territory for
Yeah.
Sean Baker, too. He's on record as saying that his co-writer basically showed him that this type of culture existed, and he was like, wait, what? And as soon as he found out about it, he wrote a movie. So I think that was part of it, too, is like he had no idea. And then when it was revealed to that point, he was like, well, shit, everyone needs to know about this. And then he made a film.
Yeah, I definitely think that like the time when this came out, it was definitely more brave, and then as we've progressed and all these films have come out, and then I feel like the YouTube mini docs have exploded as well, and they've really pushed
soft white underbelly everywhere.
Absolutely,
like,
soft white underbelly, except on the street with interviews.
American Juggalo. I mean, come on, talk about a banger.
Andrew Callahan, Channel 6 News or whatever the hell it's called.
Stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that has exposed a lot and shown a lot of like the slice of life stuff, and so I would agree.
I do think those YouTube docs are a bit exploitative because they're literally doing it for clicks.
For sure.
This film, I actually don't think very much it's that exploitative. It was made for $2 million, made $11 million, which in movie standards, that's a success, but it's not a wild success. So I do think that they were actually just trying to tell a story about a girl and her mom and what life is like in these places. I don't feel like it was exploitative.
No, I don't either.
Least, but,
maybe if they would have filmed it in 2024, like you said, there's maybe fatigue on that subject. Maybe it would feel that way now, especially on the back of all those docs we just said. But you're right. I think it feels genuine, as of watching it and thinking about it even 7 years later.
Yeah, and who are they exploiting?
Like I'm saying, I don't suggest or I don't think that this movie is exploitative. I just think that this kind of topic, for me personally, and in giving my review, it's just something that, and it doesn't feel good to say, I'm getting tired of watching sympathetic stories. Like, that feels awful to say, but at the end, like, part of me is wanting because I have the modern perspective now. I kind of need movies to be kind of like fun and surrealist again, and that's what's going to get me to the A, or like really scary in a cool new way. Like that's what's going to get into my A's.
Luckily, the next A24 film is anything but sympathetic, and that's Killing of a Sacred Deer. So
I can't fucking wait.
we're gonna have a whole lot of fucked up shit going
So
on that
excited.
won't give you sympathy.
You ain't
for
gonna
anybody.
get me to shut up. You think I talk a lot?
There we go.
You know what's also interesting is the film that won Best Picture this year was Big Fish Perv, Shape of Water.
Shape of Water. That's the
Yeah.
2017.
Gotcha.
That's
Yeah.
is it Del Toro? Is that the Del Toro?
Yeah.
Benicio?
Yeah. That's basically his like.
I've heard of this shit.
It's almost like a prequel to his Hellboy spin-offs, right? Because Amphibian. At least that's the way I took
Perhaps.
Movies.
Everyone can take away what they want.
Yeah.
What they need.
Yeah.
I don't even feel bad that I'm the only A24. I feel like that's probably okay in this circumstance because I like the ending and you guys didn't.
Well,
so.
two of us,
Yeah, I
we
mean-
mosely agreed with you.
It's okay.
we just
I like
don't
having
ending.
differentiating
You're an
opinions.
iPhone
It's not like
guy.
we're like
It's
split.
fine.
What's
You know
what's
what?
the
I know.
well? Let's come back for another
Cool.
episode. But what's the most split we've ever been on a movie? Does anyone know off the top of their head?
Spring Breakers.
No.
No.
Well, Spring Breakers would be one. Slow West.
Slow
West.
West.
Yeah, fuck yeah,
I
Slow
hated
West.
that movie.
You all hated it.
I love that movie.
Awful.
Eric and I love it.
Like
That's
B,
right.
I gave it a B. I liked it.
I wanna
think
rewatch
gave
that
it a
movie.
D, maybe. I can't remember.
The worst.
It just pissed
Come
me off.
on, give it a chance. Modern Western for the win.
Yeah, you know what's a good Western? Godless, YouTube, Netflix miniseries. Very, very good. Yeah, go
Yeah.
watch it.
I still remember that you told me that one, but you know, you have about 10 recommendations for me you still gotta watch. So
Whatever. We all die.
thanks for listening to us talk about
Florida.
Yes.
Florida Project, third world country. We
Our
just
thoughts
said,
about
if you're
Florida
Florida and you're mad at
and-
us, write us a letter.
the struggles that are going on in
Math,
Florida.
All sorts of stuff.
Math.
Remember, in the
Man.
shadow of the mouse, we are really all equal under the eyes of the mouse.
Mouse.
Aye.
I literally wrote in my notes, I'm like, literally, the poverty in the shadow of the mouse. It's like right here. So, like,
we
that's
got-
the way
we got-
this movie made me feel.
We got you
Look at
throwing
all these
out
poor
those,
people
those
out here.
like
Oh, fucking
bars,
bars.
and then Kelly's with the sunlight to the moonlight bars. We're about to drop our, really sick.
We didn't
album
even
here,
talk about the
folks.
scene where the honeymoon couple shows up and she's like, what the
Yeah.
fuck
Oh
is
my-
this?
So good.
Can you imagine going to your honeymoon and you're a European Disney fan? And
Oh,
you
yeah,
show
yeah.
up at this slum. Like, ooh.
Yep. Welcome to the Magic Kingdom, baby.
Yeah, right. Everybody
tricky
has
motel
fun
name.
here.
Yeah.
Very tricky motel name. They definitely did that on purpose.
Oh, definitely.
For those
1,000%.
circumstances.
Yeah.
Yep.
No doubt.
So let's go stay over here. Magic Castle.
Magic
All
Castles
right.
and 6 miles away from Disney World, like, definitely makes sense.
And you guys have seen
Come
like
to the
how many
Magic Castle.
you guys have seen like how many people on like the A24 film group on Facebook that are like, I stopped by the
Exactly.
motel while I'm in
It
Florida.
must be
So
literally
it's
that
become-
close to the highway.
It has become a
Oh, yeah.
destination.
All right. Well, good night, everybody. Thanks for listening to us.
Thank you. Like and subscribe. Give us 5 stars.
5 stars.
Yeah, go to every single one of our Mount Rushmore and top 10 and vote for Cole Gibson's list. They're always the best. I appreciate you.
Nah.
Love you. Good night.